I want you to think about a moment when you were a child and you were scared. Really scared. The kind of scared that lives in your body, not just your mind. The kind where your hands shake and your chest gets tight and the world suddenly feels too big and too dark and too empty all at once. Now I want you to imagine that the thing that scared you most was not the storm outside. It was the sound of your parents' car pulling away. I was 15 years old. It was a Thursday night in November. The rain was coming down so hard I could barely see my own hands in front of my face. I was standing on the side of a road in rural Tennessee with nothing but the clothes on my back and the sound of thunder getting closer. And my parents' headlights were disappearing around the bend. They left me there because of a lie my sister told. My name is Olivia. I am 26 years old. And what happened on that road? Who found me? Who saved me? And what my father's face looked like the day he found out the truth? That is the story I have carried inside me for 10 years. And I am finally ready to tell it. Welcome to Truth Hearty Stories. This is the channel where real women share the stories they were never supposed to tell. If this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe, because every story we share will stay with you long after it ends. Now, let us get back to where we were. To understand what happened on that November night, you have to understand the family I grew up in. Because we were not a broken family. We were not a cold family. We were, by most measures, a good family. And I think that is actually what made everything so much harder to process for so many years. We lived in a small town in rural Tennessee. Not the kind of place that makes it onto maps that people look at. The kind of place where the nearest grocery store is 20 minutes away, and everybody knows your last name and what your grandfather did for a living. My parents, James and Carol Hartley, had lived in that town their whole lives. My father was a carpenter, the kind who built things to last. My mother taught second grade at the elementary school and had been doing it for so long that she had taught children who grew up to send their own children to her classroom. They were steady people, rooted people, the kind of people who showed up. I need you to hold on to that. The kind of people who showed up. There were 3 of us kids. My older brother Marcus, who was 18 when this story takes place. My younger sister Clara, 4 years younger than me, so 11 years old that November. And me, Olivia, 15, the middle child, the one who existed in the space between a brother old enough to have 1 foot out the door and a sister young enough to still be the baby. Clara and I were close the way sisters are close, when they share a room and a childhood. We fought about small things, borrowed each other's things without asking, knew each other's secrets. I looked out for her at school. I walked with her to the bus stop every morning. I was her big sister, and I took that seriously. I trusted her completely. That trust, it was the thing she used against me. It started 3 days before the storm, a Thursday at school. There was a boy named Derek Collins, 16 years old, football player, the kind of boy that small towns build entire mythologies around. I had known Derek since 4th grade. We were not close. We were not anything. We were 2 people who existed in the same school and occasionally said hello in the hallways. But Clara had a different story to tell. I found out later, much later, exactly what she said. What I know is that she went to my mother on a Monday evening and told her that she had seen me with Derek Collins behind the bleachers after school, that she had seen things she was too young to see. She used specific details, convincing details, the kind of details that only work because a mother is terrified and a 15-year-old girl is suddenly reframed as someone unrecognizable. My mother told my father that night. My father came to my room and asked me. I had no idea what he was talking about. I said I had not been near the bleachers. I had been in the library after school working on a history project. I could prove it. I told him to ask my teacher. He said he would look into it. He did not look into it. On Thursday evening, my parents told me we were going to visit my father's sister, who lived about 40 miles outside of town. A regular enough thing. I got in the car without question.
We had been driving for about 20 minutes when my father turned off the main road onto a smaller one, a back road through the trees. I remember thinking it was a strange way to go. He pulled over. My mother did not turn around. My father looked at me in the rearview mirror, and his face was something I had never seen on him before. Hard and hurt at the same time. He said, "Get out of the car, Olivia." I said, "What?" He said it again. I thought it was some kind of strange joke, a misunderstanding I would clear up in 30 seconds. I got out of the car. And my father drove away. The rain started before his taillights disappeared. I stood on that road for what felt like a very long time, but was probably about 2 minutes before the reality of what had happened actually reached me. My parents had left me on a back road in the dark in rural Tennessee, and it was starting to rain. I did not have my phone. I had left it at home because the screen had cracked that morning, and my father had said he would fix it that evening. I did not have a jacket. I was wearing a light sweater and jeans and sneakers that were already soaking through from the puddles forming at the roadside. I started walking in the direction the car had gone, because it was the only direction I knew. The rain got heavier. Not the gentle kind. The kind that comes from a Tennessee November storm that has been building all day and finally arrives with everything it has. The kind where the sound of it on the leaves above is so loud you cannot hear your own footsteps. The kind that does not make you wet, it makes you cold all the way through, in a way that feels like something is being taken from you. I was crying. I know that. Though the rain made it impossible to tell where the rain ended and the tears started. I walked for about 15 minutes on that road without seeing a single car, a single house, a single light. Just trees on both sides and the road going dark ahead of me and the storm getting worse. And then I slipped. The road had a shallow ditch at the edge and the rain had filled it. And when my foot went off the asphalt, I went down hard, my ankle twisting underneath me, my hands going into the mud. I tried to get up. My ankles screamed. I sat in the mud on the side of a road in the dark in a storm, and I was 15 years old and I was completely alone. And I did something I had not done since I was very small. I prayed. Not formally, not in any language I had been taught, just this raw, desperate interior cry that went something like, "Please, please, someone, please." And then I saw headlights. The truck slowed before it reached me. The driver had seen me from a distance, which told me later that they had been going slowly already, carefully, the way careful people drive in bad weather. It stopped about 10 feet ahead of me. The door opened. A woman got out. She was older, maybe 60, maybe a little more. Short gray hair flattened by the rain immediately. She was wearing a heavy canvas jacket and work boots, and she walked toward me without hesitation, the way people walk when they are used to things going wrong and knowing what to do about it. She said, "Honey, what on earth are you doing out here?" I could not answer properly. I was shaking too hard. The cold and the shock and the crying had taken most of my language away. She did not wait for an answer.
She put her jacket around my shoulders, and she helped me up, and she helped me to the truck, and she put me in the passenger seat and turned the heat on full. And she said, "Okay, you are okay now. Just breathe." Her name was Ruth Eleanor Gaines. She was 62 years old. She lived alone on a property about 3 miles up that road, a small farm she had kept running since her husband passed 8 years earlier. She had been in town for groceries and was driving home in the storm, taking the back road because, as she told me later, she always took the back roads because she liked the quiet. She drove me to her house. She made me take a hot shower and gave me dry clothes, her own things, a flannel shirt and thick socks and sweatpants rolled up at the waist because she was 4 inches shorter than me. She made soup, real soup, the kind that has been simmering all day. She put it in front of me at her kitchen table without asking whether I wanted it. And she sat across from me, and she waited. When I finally stopped shaking enough to talk, I told her everything, all of it. The whole strange, terrible night pouring out of me while the storm raged outside and the soup steamed between us. She listened to every word without interrupting once. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, very simply, "Those are not the actions of parents who are thinking clearly. Something has gone very wrong, and we are going to fix it." She said, "we." I had known this woman for 2 hours, and she said, "we." I started crying again. Ruth called my parents from her landline. She had me tell her our home number, and she dialed it herself. And when my mother answered, Ruth introduced herself very calmly and said, "My name is Ruth Gaines. I live on County Road 7, and I have your daughter Olivia here. She is safe. She has a twisted ankle, and she is in shock from being left in a storm. But she is physically okay." I could hear my mother's voice from across the room. Not the words, just the pitch of it, high and breaking. Ruth listened for a moment. Then she said, very evenly, "I am going to ask you and your husband to come and get her tonight. And when you get here, I think there are some things we need to discuss." She hung up. She looked at me across the kitchen table and she said, "They are coming." I said, "Are they angry?" She said, "I think they are scared," which is not the same thing, even if it can feel like it. My parents arrived 40 minutes later. My father knocked on Ruth's door, and when she opened it and he saw me sitting at the kitchen table in Ruth's 2 small clothes with my ankle wrapped in a bandage Ruth had found in her first aid kit and my eyes still swollen from crying, something happened to his face that I had never seen before. It collapsed. That is the only word for it. This strong, solid carpenter's face that I had watched my whole life, that had always been the steadiest thing I knew. It just collapsed. He crossed the room in about 4 steps, and he knelt down beside my chair, and he put his arms around me, and he said, "I am sorry. I am so sorry, Olivia. I am so sorry." He was shaking. My mother stood in the doorway with her hand over her mouth. Ruth stood very still in the corner of her own kitchen and let the moment be what it needed to be. After a few minutes, my father pulled back and looked at me, and he said, "We did something tonight that I cannot explain. We were wrong. I do not have words for how wrong." I said, "Dad?" Clara lied. His face changed again. The drive home was mostly silent. I sat in the back seat with my ankle throbbing and Ruth's flannel shirt still on, because my mother had forgotten to bring me a change of clothes in her panic and nobody mentioned it. My father's hands were on the wheel,
and I could see them from where I sat. Tight, knuckles slightly pale.
We got home, and Clara was in the living room. She had been put to bed, but she had come back downstairs, the way 11-year-olds do when they sense that something significant is happening without them. She was sitting on the couch in her pajamas with her knees pulled up. When she saw me, she went very still. My father sat down in the chair across from her. He did not raise his voice. My father almost never raised his voice. He said, "Clara, I need you to tell me again exactly what you saw." Clara looked at me. Then she looked at my father. And something in her face, some 11-year-old calculation about what was possible to maintain, seemed to shift. She started crying before she even started talking. It came out slowly and then all at once. She had not seen anything. There was no Derek Collins behind the bleachers. She had made it up because she was angry at me. I had told her the week before that she could not borrow my favorite sweater for a school picture, and she had been furious. And she had built this story out of that fury, the way children sometimes do, without fully understanding the size of what they are creating. She had not expected our parents to react the way they did. She had not expected any of this. She said, "I did not think they would actually do anything. I just wanted Olivia to get in trouble." My mother sat down on the couch and put her face in her hands. My father looked at Clara for a very long time. Then he stood up, and he walked to the window, and he stood there with his back to all of us. And his shoulders, those wide carpenter shoulders I had leaned against my whole life, started shaking. My father was crying. I had seen my father cry exactly once before that night, at his own father's funeral, briefly and privately, when he thought no one was looking. This was different. This was a man who had done something he could not, understanding the full weight of it for the first time. I did not know what to do. So I did the only thing that felt true. I got up on my sore ankle and I walked to the window, and I stood beside him. He put his arm around me without turning around. We stood there together for a long time. The weeks after that night were some of the most complicated of my childhood. My parents apologized to me properly, formally, sitting me down and saying the words clearly and without excuse. My father especially. He came to my room the morning after, and he sat on the edge of my bed, and he said, "Olivia, I failed you last night in a way that a father should never fail his child. I believed something without asking enough questions, and I made a decision that I will regret for the rest of my life. I am asking you to forgive me, and I understand if that takes time." I told him I forgave him. I meant it, though I also understood even then that forgiveness and healing are different things that move at different speeds. Clara was a different matter. My parents handled her with a seriousness I had not expected. She lost privileges, she was required to apologize directly and specifically, and for months afterward, the household had a different quality. A careful quality. Like everyone was aware that something had been broken and was watching to see whether it would hold when put back together. Clara and I did not speak much for a long time. Not from my choosing, exactly. More from a mutual discomfort that neither of us had the language to address at 11 and 15. School was strange. I had not told anyone what had happened, and I was not going to. But I carried it inside me, and it changed how I moved through the world for a while. I was quieter, more careful, less willing to trust that the ground was solid beneath me. I thought about Ruth constantly.
This woman who had stopped her truck in a storm for a stranger, who had said "we" after 2 hours, who had made soup and wrapped my ankle and called my parents with a steadiness I still find remarkable when I think about it. I wrote her a letter, handwritten, 3 pages. I told her what had happened with Clara. I told her what my father had said at the window. I told her I thought about her every day. She wrote back. That letter started something. Ruth and I wrote letters for the next 2 years. Real letters, handwritten, in envelopes with stamps. She was not a person who used email, and I found I did not want to use it with her either. There was something about the pace of letters that matched what we were. She wrote about her farm, about the seasons and what was growing and what was not, and what the land required of her at different times of year. She wrote about her husband, Walter, who had died 8 years before, and who she missed in the practical, daily way you miss someone who was your partner in the actual logistics of living. She wrote about her children, 2 sons, both in other states, both busy in the way grown children are busy. She asked about my life with real curiosity, about school and friends and what I was thinking about and what I wanted. Not in the way adults sometimes ask those questions to fill space, but in the way people ask when they actually want to know. I told her things I did not tell anyone else. I visited her twice with my parents, who by that point had developed their own quiet gratitude toward Ruth that expressed itself in my father fixing her porch railing the second time we came, and my mother bringing enough food to stock her freezer for a month. My father and Ruth talked for a long time on that second visit, sitting on her porch in the afternoon light. I do not know everything they said, but I know my father came home from that visit different in some way. I could feel but not fully name. Lighter, maybe, like something had been released. When I left for college at 18, I hugged Ruth at her door, and she held me for a moment, and she said, "You are going to do something real with your life, Olivia. I have known it since the night I found you in the mud." I said, "How did you know?" She said, "Because you prayed out loud in a storm, and then you got back up. That tells you everything you need to know about a person." I went to college in Nashville, studied social work, which surprised some people, and surprised me not at all. I had lived inside a night that could have gone very differently if one person had not stopped her truck. I wanted to be the person who stopped. I graduated and got a job with a nonprofit that worked with at-risk youth in Tennessee. Kids who had fallen through gaps, kids whose families had made decisions in a crisis that left marks. I was good at it, in the way you are good at things that come from somewhere real inside you. Clara and I found our way back to each other slowly. She was different at 16 than she had been at 11. She brought up that night herself, on a drive we were taking together the summer I came home for my first year of college. She said, "I think about what I did a lot. I think I will think about it my whole life." I said, "I know." She said, "I am so sorry, Olivia. I know I have said it before, but I want to keep saying it until it actually means something." I said, "It already means something." We were quiet for the rest of that drive. But it was a different quiet from before. A quieter quiet. The kind that means something has been put down. My father called me on my 25th birthday. He called every year on my birthday. But this call was different. He said, "I have been thinking about that night a lot lately." He said it the way people say things they have been preparing for a while. He said, "I do not think I will ever fully forgive myself, Olivia. Not because I want to keep punishing myself, but because I think some things deserve to be carried.
I think that night deserves to be something I remember clearly for the rest of my life. I said, "Dad, you came to Ruth's door and your face collapsed. I saw that. I have always known what that meant." He was quiet for a moment. Then I said, "She is something else, Ruth." I said, "She really is." Ruth passed away 2 years ago, peacefully, at home, in the farmhouse on County Road 7. Her son called me because she had left my number in her address book with a note that said, "Please call Olivia." I drove out to that house one more time, stood on the porch where my father had fixed the railing all those years ago, walked through the kitchen where she had put soup in front of me without asking. I stood there for a long time, and I thought about what it means that a stranger can change the entire direction of a life. That one person stopping a truck on a back road in a storm, one person saying "we" after 2 hours, one person making soup and wrapping an ankle and calling parents with a steady voice. That one person can be the thing that stands between a 15-year-old girl and something much darker. I think about the night on that road sometimes. Not often, but sometimes. And when I do not think about the fear first anymore. I think about the headlights. I think about the moment the headlights appeared. If you are watching this and you have a person in your life who showed up when nobody else did, who stopped when they could have kept driving, who said "we" when they had every reason to say "not my problem," I want you to tell them, whatever it costs in pride or awkwardness or fear of saying too much, tell them. Because Ruth knew what she had done for me. And I told her clearly and regularly for 11 years, and I am so grateful I did not leave it unsaid. And if you are watching this, and you are the person who needs someone to stop, I want you to know something. The headlights are coming. I do not know when. I do not know from which direction. But the world has Ruth Gaineses in it. People who take the back roads because they like the quiet, and who stop their trucks in storms, and who make soup first, and ask questions second. They are real. They are out there. And they are looking. Hold on. My name is Olivia. I am 26 years old. My parents left me alone in a storm because of my sister's lie. And the woman who found me in the mud changed everything. Thank you so much for being here today. If this story moved you, please share it. Someone out there needs to hear that one person can be enough. Take care of yourselves.